How's it going, everybody? My name's Warner Fields with Fields of Profit. I'm a full-time mid-six-figure Amazon seller, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about some of the biggest mistakes that I've made in my personal Amazon business. I very recently made a mistake that cost me a little bit over $1,000, so I'm going to be breaking down what that mistake is, how you can avoid that for your business, and I'm going to be talking about a couple other mistakes that I've made. But honestly, I want to preface this video with the mistakes that I've made and the mistakes that you're likely to make in your business. Don't let those mistakes make you afraid of selling on Amazon. These mistakes that I've made are just kind of a cost of doing business, right? Because the mistakes that you're going to make, maybe the things that are a little bit out of your control, are going to be so much less in terms of financial loss than the gain potential of selling on Amazon. So I don't want this to be some kind of a horror story for you guys. I just wanted to offer some value to you guys with some specific actionable steps you can take to actively avoid losing money in the same ways that I have learned from my mistakes, right? So if you're brand new to the channel, or if you haven't already checked it out, there's gonna be a link right down below for our completely free Amazon seller Discord community. Over 15,000 people in there with tons of free information. I would love to see you in there, but let's go ahead and jump into the video. So the first mistake I want to talk about today, and the one that I made very recently, I'm still kind of trying to figure out what I want to do with this stuff, but basically what I did is I just was not paying attention to detail and I bought the wrong item. It might sound silly, right? But I bought the wrong item from a website that's very difficult to do returns with. So I sent that off to my prep center, and now there's over 200 units of this. I went hard with it because it was a really good coupon deal, but I wasn't paying attention because the reason that it was a really good deal is because the dosages didn't match, the sizes didn't match. So I bought a 2-ounce bottle of something, it was a 3-ounce bottle of it on Amazon. So obviously it was a good deal because it was 2/3 the amount of the product that you should be looking out for. So that's the number one thing I think is super important as an Amazon seller, is just being very attentive to detail. And this is something that I work on with my virtual assistants. Before they're even a part of the team, they have to pass a test. The test is specifically designed to test their attention to detail. Those of you who have that test, it's in the FBA roadmap, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But that test, it gets very specific with them because attention to detail is extremely important when you're selling on Amazon. Let me kind of show you an example of that. So just for an example, this is a product that I was looking at very recently. You can see it's just this vitamin selling over here on Amazon for a little over $18, and then I noticed that it was selling on VitaCost for $7. You can probably see the issue right away, but this was added to the sheet by a virtual assistant. Again, we do work on that with them, but mistakes are always going to be made. Like I said, I made the mistake that cost me $1,000. So just kind of a quick example is check out the dosage on this. So this is 2,000 or 50 micrograms, and then this is 5,000 or 125 micrograms. That's the only difference. So when you're looking at products like this, try to be as careful as you possibly can to make sure, like, every time I look at a product, I'm checking the gummies, like I'm checking the dosages of everything. One thing that you can do, I was checking to see if it's available on this product. This product, you can't see nutrition label, but a lot of times if I'm really not sure on a product, so in this case over on VitaCost, I can see the nutrition label. So I would check and make sure that the calories, the carbs, everything is the same. In this case, this product listing is really not great. It's not selling a ton every month, but a lot of the listings that you're going to be comparing, especially for vitamins and stuff, it's really important that people get the exact product that they think they're ordering. So if you can find a picture on Amazon, a lot of times there'll be a nutrition label. Like I just went ahead and pulled up this product that was linked below that one, and you can see a nutrition label on here. So if you're unsure on a product, I always try to find the nutrition label, and beyond that, sometimes you can look in the description. So a lot of times there's clothing and shoes and that kind of stuff. If I'm not sure if it's a match, I'll look at the description, and sometimes maybe it'll say 80% cotton, 20% polyester, and then the source says 60-40. So that it might look exactly the same, but if those fabric blends aren't the same, it's not the same product. So those are just some things to look out for when you're trying to be extra attentive to detail, because the customers, you know, Amazon customers are picky. These are premium customers that we need to take care of. So be sure to look out for some of those things. Hopefully looking at those nutrition labels, looking at the fabric blends, just get into the details as much as possible and try to make sure you have an exact match before you do pull the trigger. Because as I learned, a very expensive lesson, I am now probably just going to end up donating a little over $1,000 worth of, it was like some kind of skin lotion kind of thing. So I'll probably just have it donated because it went to the prep center. It's going to be kind of a headache to try to get it returned back to the store. So I'll probably just donate it, take the tax write-off, cost of doing business, but I should have been much more attentive to detail. I broke my own rules in this case. I got too excited by a deal. So make sure you even overanalyze everything you're purchasing, especially if you're going to buy a lot of it like I did. I bought over 200 units of this without selling it before because it was a good deal. It was a good coupon. I didn't think it'd be back for a while. So I went ahead and pulled the trigger on a bunch of it, and now I'm going to have to eat the cost on that. So just be sure you're really attentive to detail. The next mistake that I made in my Amazon business that I want to talk about this mistake is not nearly as expensive. I honestly want to say that that mistake with the lotion very recently is probably the most expensive mistake I've made. I was trying to think about it and I think it is. So if you think about the amount of money I've been able to generate and the amount of sales I've been able to generate compared to kind of the most expensive mistake only being $1,000 mistake, it's really not a bad trade-off. But you know, it is what it is. Obviously I would have liked to have that $1,000, but it's all part of doing business. So the next mistake that I made in my business was not being attentive to expiration dates. So if you're unfamiliar with the expiration date policy within Amazon, I'm going to go ahead and pull that up over here. So this is a really big article with all the specifics that's involved in expiration dates. I guess it's not too long, but I would encourage you to just Google Amazon seller expiration date policy. But I wanted to talk about this one right here because this is the reason that I think it was about $200 worth of conditioner that got returned to me. So I bought this product during the summer and it was actually just some bottles of conditioner. I was buying them for $5, flipping them for 18 to 20. It was a really good product. Again, this was another coupon deal, so I went really deep on it to kind of cash in on that deal being so good, because previously I'd been buying it for $9 or $10. It was just like a pretty standard 30 to 40% ROI flip, but it became really, really good. So I wanted to stock up. And then when I went ahead and sent those items into Amazon, part of the nature of outsourcing, I didn't personally touch those products. So I wasn't able to look at those products and see the expiration date. Back then it would have been my little sister was doing a lot of my prep work. Nowadays I have a prep center who's looking out for mistakes like this. So that's kind of a tangent there, but having a prep center who's looking out for you, looking out for quick mistakes like expiration dates is going to be beneficial for you. But what actually ended up happening with this product was I sent it in during the summer. I think it was like May or June, and then it actually ended up expiring during October. So what happened is I sent it in, the prices tanked, and then I decided to wait it out as I usually do. I wait for a month before I go ahead and raise my prices back up. But what I didn't realize is those bottles were expiring very, very soon, and I got hit with this policy here. It was within that 90-day period, and it ended up getting returned to me pretty soon. I think I ended up getting them about 2 months before their expiration date. I got them in the mail. I was like, what's going on here? And then I looked, noticed the expiration dates on there. So make sure you're extra attentive to expiration dates when you're sending in products. And one thing you want to think about, this happens with me a lot. I like to do some vitamins, that kind of stuff. They literally have this example on the webpage here. So if you have 240 like daily servings in this container, you need to make sure that you have the shelf life of the amount of servings plus 90 days. So this has happened in the past with me for some like multivitamins, like 365-day multivitamins, where it actually ended up expiring. Like it was like 10 to 11 months. It was not quite there where it wasn't up to Amazon's expiration date policy. So I went ahead and returned those, but that might not be something you think about, right? If you are, you get the product, it expires in a year or 11 months, whatever. To you, that's probably like, oh, that's great. But just make sure you're keeping this policy in mind where, let's say in this case, it's 240 servings. You get it, it expires in 10 months or something. You're like, okay, we're good to go. But make sure you consider the extra 90 days that Amazon wants on there. So that's just something to look out for. The expiration date policy is not too complicated, but just make sure you're not sending in things that are going to be expiring, within a reasonable time frame of you getting it to the warehouse. And also think about that daily serving rule. So the last mistake that I want to talk about, and one that I've talked about before on the channel, so I won't get too into detail on it. If you want to watch the full video about this mistake, there's going to be a link up here. Essentially what this mistake was I sold books on Amazon for almost 2 years before I sold anything else. I did almost $200,000 in sales doing just used books, doing just kind of thrifting things from thrift stores. I was able to make about $60,000 to $65,000 in profit, but I was still buying things from thrift stores. And this ended up being a very costly mistake in terms of opportunity cost, because while that money was sitting in the bank, not growing at all, I should have been scaling into online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, some kind of model where I'm able to spend my dollars faster. So if that's you, if you're a bookseller who's got a little bit too much money in the bank, good for you. You're doing well, right? You're getting a lot of profit. You've got a lot of money sitting around, but now you need to make sure you're continuing to grow your business by growing that money, right? So even though you're not putting it into used books where you're going to make 100, 200, maybe even 1,000% ROI, it's still better to grow that money at that very consistent returns you can generate with arbitrage, because you can just scale that so much higher and grow that money. Whereas it would be nearly impossible to spend. So personally, I try to spend $2,500 every day on products. I would have to imagine that would be impossible with used books unless I have a really, really big team going through pallets and that kind of stuff. But in my opinion, it's just so much more scalable to look into those models where you're able to spend your dollars faster. And just to kind of let you know where I'm at in my business, I'm working pretty hard on getting some distributor accounts set up with wholesalers. I'm looking at wholesale as an opportunity to grow my money at 20 to 30%. Like I'm really not expecting giant margins, but I want to start getting into volume so that I can continue to not have money sitting in the bank while I'm doing these much higher ROI arbitrage flips that generally sit between 35, 40, and even more ROI. So that's kind of where I'm at in my business. Just kind of a reminder to make sure you are leveraging your money in the best way possible. Make sure you're in the right boat, right? So if you're in the boat of selling used books, you can paddle really, 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 really hard, but someone who's doing online arbitrage and working half as hard as you is probably going to be building a little bit more of a scalable business. Just thinking about things long term, you want to make sure that you're not in the wrong boat, right? So you can work really hard in the wrong boat. And then end up behind someone else in a different boat that was just a little bit better, right? So make sure you're chasing the right opportunity for you. And specifically within Amazon, that generally means kind of looking at your bankroll, making sure you're getting through your bankroll. And if you're not getting through your bankroll, kind of looking at the next tier of an Amazon business model. So in my opinion, like if you're selling books, maybe look at retail arbitrage or online. If you're doing just retail arbitrage, maybe look at online arbitrage and maybe wholesale, and so on, all the way up into just being a wholesale or private label business. Because in the long term, you want to be super scalable. You want to be able to deploy a ton of capital into your business. Otherwise, you're going to struggle once you get to scale. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video and got a ton of value out of it. I hope you learned from my mistakes. I hope you go out and don't make these mistakes. The mistakes I talked about in this video cost me $1,200 plus the massive opportunity cost of not selling arbitrage products sooner. So don't make my mistakes. Go out and learn from that. If you have any questions, comments, anything like that, feel free to drop that down below. But I really appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you next time.